Kieran Vale pressed his back against the cold metal wall as 3 massive students walked past. They did not notice him, or perhaps they simply did not care. He had become good at making himself invisible over the past 2 weeks at the Galactic Academy. It was easier than facing the constant reminders that he did not belong here. The hallway stretched before him like a tunnel of gleaming silver and blue lights. Hundreds of students from dozens of species moved between classes. There were the Crithians with their scaled skin and towering frames, the Zephyrins who moved so fast they appeared as blurs, and the Sivians whose eyes glowed faintly as they communicated telepathically. Then there was Kieran, a human, average height by Earth standards, but small compared to most beings here. His brown hair was ordinary, his build was thin, and his only remarkable feature was the stubborn determination in his green eyes. Earth had joined the Galactic Union just 3 years ago. Humanity was the new species, the untested ones. The Academy accepted only 3 humans this cycle, and Kieran was beginning to understand why so few were chosen. His fellow humans, both military candidates named Jalen and Celera, had already distanced themselves from him after the first week of training. They wanted to prove humans could compete. Kieran was proof that maybe they could not. He made his way to the combat training hall, knowing what waited for him there. The instructor, a 4-armed being named Instructor Kale, had little patience for weakness. The training hall was enormous, with sections for different types of combat. Energy weapons, hand-to-hand fighting, zero-gravity battle, and survival tactics. Kieran had failed at all of them. Today was ranking day. All 500 students would see exactly where they stood. A massive display board showed the names and positions. Kieran did not need to look at the bottom to know his name would be there. Number 500, dead last. Below him was only empty space. A group of students laughed as they passed the board. One of them, a Crithian named Draker, pointed at Kieran's name. "Paper student," he said loudly. "One touch and he tears." Others joined the laughter. Kieran kept walking. He had learned that responding only made it worse. His small frame could not intimidate anyone here. His human strength was nothing compared to species that evolved on high-gravity worlds. His reaction time was slow against beings who could see in multiple spectrums or predict movements through telepathy. The combat trial began with individual tests. Students fought training robots programmed to match their skill level. Kieran faced the easiest setting, and still he struggled. The robot moved with mechanical precision, blocking his punches, sweeping his legs. He hit the mat hard, the impact knocking the air from his lungs. Around him, other students defeated their opponents in seconds. Some fought multiple robots at once. When the trial ended, Kieran had the worst score. Again, Instructor Kale did not even look disappointed anymore, just resigned. "Vale, you need to improve or you will not survive the proving grounds next month," the instructor said. "I cannot lower the standards for you." Kieran nodded. He knew the proving grounds was a survival challenge that every student must pass. 3 days in a hostile environment sector. No exceptions, no second chances. Fail and you leave the academy. Many students believed Kieran would not return. After training, he limped to the medical bay. His ribs were bruised from hitting the mat repeatedly. The medical staff healed him quickly with advanced technology that Earth did not yet possess. Physical injuries were easy to fix. The shame was harder to treat. That evening, Kieran sat alone in the massive dining hall. Meals were communal, designed to encourage interaction between species. But Kieran ate by himself at a corner table. He noticed a small Floran student struggling to carry a tray with injured arms, likely from training. Without thinking, Kieran stood and helped carry the tray to the student's table. The Floran, a plant-based being named Verdalis, looked surprised but grateful. "Thank you," Verdalis said quietly. "Not many notice when others need help here." Kieran shrugged. "Seemed like you could use a hand." Verdalis studied him. "You are the human who ranks last. Why do you stay?" Most beings would leave rather than face such dishonor. It was a fair question. Kieran had asked himself the same thing many times. "Because giving up is worse than failing," he said finally. "Maybe I'm not strong or fast, but I can choose not to quit. That night, unable to sleep, Kieran wandered the academy. His curiosity led him to the library archives, a vast repository of knowledge from thousands of worlds. He loved it here. Unlike the training halls, the library did not judge him. He could learn about alien cultures, study their histories, understand their perspectives. While searching through old station blueprints for a class project, he found something odd. A ventilation shaft that led to lower levels not marked on the official maps. The academy had restricted areas, but this seemed different. Forgotten rather than forbidden. His curiosity won over caution. Kieran found the access panel and crawled into the shaft. It was cramped and dark, lit only by occasional maintenance lights. He followed it down, deeper into the station than students normally went. The air grew colder. Strange sounds echoed through the metal walls. Finally, the shaft opened into a large chamber. Kieran dropped down and found himself in what looked like a containment area. Massive reinforced cells lined the walls. Most were empty, but at the far end, in the largest cell, something moved. Kieran approached slowly. His eyes adjusted to the dim light, and his breath caught in his throat. A creature unlike anything he had seen before lay chained in the center of the cell. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of an earth grizzly bear. Its body was covered in thick fur that might have been silver or gray, matted and dirty. The shape was wolf-like, but far more massive and powerful. Energy restraints bound its legs, and a muzzle covered its jaws. But what struck Kieran most were the eyes. They were intelligent eyes. Aware eyes. Eyes filled with pain and rage and something else. Loneliness. The creature noticed him. Its body tensed, muscles coiling beneath the fur. A low growl rumbled from behind the muzzle. This was a predator, a killer, something that could tear Kieran apart without effort. Kieran should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at him to flee back through the ventilation shaft. But he had spent 2 weeks being treated as less than others, being seen as weak and worthless. He knew what it felt like to be alone and hurting. He saw the malfunctioning water dispenser in the corner, empty. He saw the wounds where restraints had rubbed the creature's legs raw. He saw nutrient paste in a feeding trough, the kind given to animals rather than thinking beings. "Hey there," Kieran said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Looks like you're having a worse day than me." The growling stopped. The creature's eyes focused on him with sudden intensity, as if surprised that anyone would speak to it with kindness rather than fear. Kieran took 1 step closer to the bars. The security guards found the cell empty of visitors 3 hours later during their routine check. They never knew Kieran had been there. He had stayed for an hour, sitting outside the energy barrier, talking quietly to the creature who watched him with those intense, intelligent eyes. When footsteps echoed in the distance, Kieran had slipped back through the ventilation shaft. Now lying in his small dormitory bed, he could not stop thinking about what he had seen. The creature was clearly suffering. The next morning, instead of going directly to training, Kieran detoured to the medical supply room. He took basic wound treatment supplies, the kind used for minor training injuries. Nobody questioned him. Students got hurt every day. He also saved portions of his breakfast. Real food, not the nutrient paste he had seen in that feeding trough. He wrapped it carefully and hid it in his training bag. That day, training was particularly brutal. Instructor Kale had them practice zero-gravity combat. Kieran tumbled helplessly while other students moved with grace and control. He slammed into walls, lost his orientation, and triggered every safety protocol. Draker and his friends found it hilarious. "Maybe humans evolved in high gravity," Draker joked loudly. "That's why he falls so much here. He's used to being pressed into the ground." The other students laughed. Even Instructor Kale looked amused. Kieran said nothing, just picked himself up and tried again. By the end of the session, he was covered in bruises despite the padded training suit. But none of it mattered. He had a plan for the evening. After dinner, Kieran waited until the hallways grew quiet. Most students gathered in common areas or studied in their rooms. He made his way to the library, then to the ventilation shaft. This time he brought a small light, the medical supplies, and the food he had saved. The descent was easier now that he knew the path. He emerged into the containment chamber and approached the cell. The creature was awake, lying in the same position as before. When it saw Kieran, something changed in its expression. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. "I brought you some things," Kieran said quietly. He held up the water container he had brought. "Your dispenser is broken. Thought you might be thirsty." He placed the container near the energy barrier. After a moment of hesitation, he deactivated the barrier just enough to slide the container through, then reactivated it immediately. It was risky. The creature could attack, but Kieran had noticed yesterday that the energy restraints on its body were separate from the cell barrier. The creature was still bound. The massive wolf beast watched him carefully. Then slowly it moved toward the water. The restraints clinked as it shifted position. It lowered its muzzled head, and Kieran realized the problem. The muzzle prevented it from drinking properly. Without thinking, Kieran deactivated the barrier again and stepped inside the cell. The creature froze. Every muscle in its body went tense. Kieran could feel the danger radiating from it like heat. This being could kill him in a heartbeat. Restraints or not, one swipe of those massive paws would end him. "I'm going to help you drink," Kieran said, keeping his voice calm. "I know you probably don't trust me. I wouldn't trust me either if I were you. But you need water, and I can help with that." He picked up the container and slowly approached. The creature's eyes followed his every movement. Up close, Kieran could see the details he had missed before. The fur was matted with old blood and grime. The wounds on its legs were infected. This being had been here a long time, suffering with nobody caring enough to help. Kieran knelt beside the creature and carefully tilted the container. Water flowed through the gaps in the muzzle. The creature drank desperately, like it had been thirsty for days. When the container was empty, it looked at Kieran with an expression he could not quite read. "Better?" Kieran asked. "I brought food too. Real food, not that paste they give you." He pulled out the wrapped portions from his bag. Protein bars, fruit, things he had taken from his own meals. He broke them into smaller pieces and fed them through the muzzle carefully. The creature ate slowly, as if savoring each bite. While it ate, Kieran examined the wounds on its legs. "These look bad," he said. "I have some medical supplies. Basic stuff, but better than nothing. This is going to sting a bit." He applied the antibacterial treatment to the raw areas where the restraints had cut into skin. The creature flinched but did not pull away. Kieran worked carefully, talking the entire time about nothing in particular. About Earth, about how strange it was to be surrounded by aliens, about his terrible performance in training. "I ranked last today. Again," he said while wrapping clean bandages around one leg. 500 out of 500. Everyone thinks I should quit. Maybe they're right. But something in me just refuses to give up, you know? Even when it makes no sense to keep trying. The creature made a sound, low and rumbling, but different from the growl before. Almost like it understood. Kieran finished treating the wounds and sat back. "I don't know what you are or why you're here," he said. "But I know what it feels like to be alone. To have everyone look at you like you're worthless. So I guess I'll keep coming back, if that's okay with you. Bring you water and food. Maybe talk a bit. You don't have to respond or anything. Just, you shouldn't have to suffer like this." The creature stared at him for a long moment. Then deliberately, it lowered its massive head and rested it on the ground near Kieran's leg. Not touching, but close. A gesture of acceptance, perhaps, or trust. Kieran smiled. "I'll take that as a yes. I should give you a name. I can't keep calling you creature in my head. You remind me of old Earth legends. Wolves and great beasts. How about Rhinoc? That was a wolf from old stories. Powerful and dangerous, but also loyal." The creature, Rhinoc, made that rumbling sound again. Its eyes closed halfway, almost peaceful. Kieran stayed for another hour, just sitting with Rhinoc in comfortable silence. When he finally left, promising to return tomorrow, he felt something he had not felt since arriving at the academy. Purpose. He might be the worst student in combat, tactics, and physical ability. But he could do this. He could show kindness to a suffering being. That had to count for something. 2 weeks passed in a rhythm that gave Kieran's life meaning beyond daily humiliation in training. Every night, he descended into the containment area. Every night, he brought Reinach water, food, and medical supplies. The wounds on Reinach's legs began to heal properly. The matted fur slowly became cleaner as Kieran carefully groomed the areas he could reach. But more than the physical care, something deeper was forming between them. Kieran talked and Reinach listened. Sometimes Kieran wondered if the massive wolf beast understood everything he said, or if it simply appreciated the company. Either way, those hours spent in the containment cell became the best part of Kieran's day. During the day, things got worse. The proving grounds approached, now just 2 weeks away. Training intensified. Kieran continued to fail every exercise. His ranking remained unchanged. 500 out of 500. Other students stopped mocking him directly, which somehow felt worse. They had moved from ridicule to pity, treating him like someone already gone. One night, Kieran arrived at the containment cell bruised and limping worse than usual. Instructor Kale had paired him against Draker in combat training. The match lasted less than 30 seconds. Draker had pulled his punches. Everyone could see it. But even restrained blows from a Crithian were devastating to a human. "Hey, Reinach," Kieran said tiredly as he slipped into the cell. "Rough day." Reinach's eyes tracked the way Kieran moved, noting the injuries. The massive creature made a low sound, concerned and angry at once. "I'm okay," Kieran said, sitting heavily against the wall. "Just tired. Tired of being weak. Tired of everyone knowing I'm going to fail the proving grounds. Even I know it. How am I supposed to survive 3 days in a hostile environment when I can't last 30 seconds in a training match?" He pulled out the food he had brought but found he had no appetite. Instead, he just sat there, for the first time since coming here feeling truly defeated. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe he should quit before the proving grounds and save himself the humiliation of being carried out on a stretcher. Or worse. Reinach moved closer, restraints clinking. The wolf beast positioned himself so that Kieran could lean against his side. The fur was thick and warm. Kieran found himself talking, really talking, about things he had kept inside. "I thought I could make a difference, you know," he said quietly. "Earth is new to all this. We have so much to prove. I wanted to show that humans belong here, that we can contribute. But instead, I'm just proof that we're fragile and weak. My fellow humans won't even talk to me anymore. I'm an embarrassment to my whole species." Reinach rumbled, a sound that vibrated through his massive chest. Kieran felt it more than heard it. "You've been through worse, though," Kieran continued, absently running his hand through Reinach's fur. "I found some old records in the library. Took some digging, but I wanted to understand. You're a Valar, right? A warrior species. You bond with one partner for life. Your bonded partner was General Nissa. She died 2 years ago protecting refugee transports from pirates." Reinach went very still. "You tried to save her, but you couldn't reach her in time. After she died, you went on a rampage. Destroyed 3 pirate ships by yourself. They finally subdued you and brought you here. The Galactic Union didn't know what to do with you. Too dangerous to release, too valuable to execute. So they just chained you up and left you here, hoping you would eventually bond with someone new." Liam felt moisture on his hand and realized Reinach was crying. Tears ran down the wolf beast's muzzled face. In that moment, Kieran understood the depth of Reinach's pain. The Valar bonded for life. Losing that bond was like losing part of yourself. The rage had been grief. The violence had been pain with nowhere to go. "I'm sorry," Kieran said softly. "I'm so sorry you lost her. I'm sorry they left you alone down here to suffer. You didn't deserve that. You were grieving, and they punished you for it." Reinach turned his massive head and looked directly into Kieran's eyes. In that gaze, Kieran saw recognition. 2 beings who felt broken, worthless, alone. Different species, different circumstances, but the same core pain. Neither of them belonged anywhere. Both of them were judged as failures. "We're quite a pair," Kieran said with a sad smile. "The worst student and the fallen warrior. Nobody wants either of us." Something changed in Reinach's expression. The pain was still there, but also something else. Determination. Decision. The wolf beast made a sound, softer than before, almost questioning. "What is it?" Kirin asked. Reinach moved his head deliberately, pressing his muzzled nose against Kirin's chest right over his heart. Then he pulled back and held Kirin's gaze. The meaning was clear, even without words. A choice. An offer. Kirin's breath caught. Are you choosing me? For a bond. Reinach rumbled affirmatively. But I'm nobody, Kirin protested. I'm weak. I can't protect you or fight alongside you properly. You deserve a warrior. Someone strong. Someone worthy. Reinach made a sharp sound, almost like disagreement. He pressed his nose to Kirin's chest again, insistent. Then he did something that made Kirin's eyes widen. Reinach pulled against the restraints, not in rage or escape attempt, but deliberately making noise, creating a disturbance. Alarms began to blare. Reinach had triggered the security protocols. What are you doing? Kirin asked, panicked. They'll find me here. Reinach simply looked at him with calm certainty. This was deliberate. He was forcing the issue, making the choice undeniable and public. If Kirin tried to run, he would make it clear they were bonded. If Kirin stayed the same. There was no hiding this anymore. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Multiple guards running. Kirin stood up, his heart racing. He could still escape through the ventilation shaft if he moved now. But looking at Reinach, at the determination and trust in those eyes, he could not do it. Okay, Kirin whispered. Okay, if you choose me, then I choose you too. The cell door burst open. 6 guards in full combat armor rushed in, weapons raised. They froze when they saw Kirin standing in the cell with Reinach. The massive Veiler's head lowered in a protective posture near the human student. Step away from the prisoner, the lead guard shouted. Reinach growled, a sound that shook the walls. His eyes blazed with protective fury. The message was clear. Touch Kirin and face the consequences. The guard's weapon wavered. How did you get in here? What have you done? Before Kirin could answer, Reinach spoke. His voice was deep and rough from disuse, but the words were clear in galactic common. Mine, he said, the single word carrying absolute conviction. He is mine. The guard stared in shock. Reinach had not spoken in 2 years. And now his first word was a bond claim on the weakest student in the academy. The High Council chamber was built to intimidate. Circular and vast, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform where the accused would stand. Kirin stood there now, feeling smaller than ever. Above him sat 7 council members representing the major species of the Galactic Union. Their expressions ranged from confusion to anger to curiosity. Reinach sat beside Kirin, still restrained, but calmer now. The guards had not dared to separate them after Reinach's declaration. The wolf beast's eyes swept the council, watchful and protective. Elder Orin, the council head, leaned forward. The ancient being species was difficult to identify, something that existed before most current civilizations. Orin's voice was measured and careful. Student Kirin Vale, you stand accused of unauthorized access to restricted areas, tampering with containment protocols, and making contact with a dangerous prisoner. How do you answer these charges? Kirin took a breath. Guilty of all of them, he said. But I would do it again. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Councillor Theros, a Krithian representative, slammed a clawed hand on his desk. You admit your crimes with no remorse? This creature killed 17 beings during his rampage. He was contained for the safety of all. You risked everyone in this station with your foolish actions. He was suffering, Kirin said, finding his voice stronger now. I found him by accident, but once I saw him, I couldn't just walk away. He had infected wounds, no clean water. He was being treated like an animal instead of a person. I only wanted to help. Councillor Lyra, a Sivian, spoke next. We have reviewed security footage. You visited the prisoner every night for 2 weeks. You brought supplies, food, medical treatment. You spoke to him. Tell us, what was your purpose? Were you trying to turn him into a weapon? Use him for your own advancement? The question stung, but Kieran understood why they asked. No, he said. I just saw someone alone and in pain. I know what that feels like. I'm the worst student here. Everyone reminds me every day. I thought maybe Reinach and I could at least not be alone together. Reinach? Elder Oren asked. The name I gave him, Kieran said. He seemed to like it. Reinach rumbled in agreement. Counselor the Rose stood. The Valar bonding is sacred, cannot be forced or manipulated. But this makes no sense. Reinach was bonded to one of our greatest generals. Now he chooses a student who ranks last in every category. A human with no combat ability, no tactical value, no apparent worth. The words hurt because they were true. But before Kieran could respond, Reinach moved. The massive Valar rose to his feet, restraints clinking. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber. You see no worth because you measure wrong things, Reinach said. Every council member went silent. You measure strength in muscles and weapons, speed and reflexes, value in victories. You are fools. Elder Oren raised a hand before the other counselors could protest. Continue, Reinach. You have been silent for 2 years. We would hear what you have to say. Reinach's eyes swept the council. My bonded partner, General Nissa, was strong. She won battles and led armies. But you know what made her worthy of my bond? She saw me as more than a weapon. She valued kindness over conquest. She protected the weak instead of just defeating the strong. He turned to look at Kieran. This human has those same qualities. He is the only being in 2 years who looked at me and saw someone worth caring about. Not a tool. Not a threat. A person. Counselor Lyra studied Kieran with glowing eyes. I must verify there was no manipulation. Student Vale, submit to a mental scan. Kieran nodded. He had nothing to hide. The Sivian's consciousness touched his own. A strange sensation like fingers brushing through his thoughts. Lyra examined his memories of the past 2 weeks. Saw him sneaking supplies, treating Reinach's wounds, talking about his own failures and loneliness. Saw genuine compassion with no ulterior motive. Lyra withdrew and addressed the council. The human speaks truth. His actions were motivated purely by kindness. He expected nothing in return. He did not even know bonding was possible until Reinach initiated it. That does not change the fact that this pairing is ridiculous, Counselor the Rose argued. Reinach is meant for a warrior, not a student who cannot pass basic combat trials. The human will die in the proving grounds, and we will have lost a valuable asset when Reinach goes mad with grief again. I won't die, Kieran said quietly. Not if Reinach is with me. You have 2 weeks until the proving grounds, the Rose countered. 2 weeks won't turn you into a warrior worthy of a Valar bond. Elder Oren raised a hand for silence. The bond has been declared. By Valar law, which the Galactic Union respects, it cannot be denied or broken. Reinach has chosen. The question before us is not whether to allow the bond, but what conditions to place upon it. The council debated for hours. Kieran stood throughout, legs aching, but he refused to show weakness. Reinach remained at his side, a solid presence. Finally, Elder Oren spoke the council's decision. Reinach will be released from containment. The bond will be formalized. However, Student Vale, you will be held responsible for Reinach's actions. Any violence, any loss of control, and both of you will face severe consequences. You will wear a monitoring device that tracks Reinach's emotional state. If he begins to rage as he did before, you will be separated immediately. He won't rage, Kieran said with certainty. Not while I'm here. We shall see, Elder Oren said. The restraints will be removed in a formal bonding ceremony tomorrow. Until then, Reinach will remain in a holding cell, a comfortable one with proper care. You may visit him under guard supervision. As guards led them from the chamber, Kieran felt the weight of what had happened. The entire academy would know by morning. The weakest student had bonded with the most dangerous creature in the facility. Some would fear him now. Others would resent him. Many would see it as cheating, gaining power he did not earn. But walking beside Reinach, feeling the connection forming between them like invisible threads, Kieran knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was not alone anymore. Neither was Reinach. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That night, in a properly equipped holding cell with clean water and real food, Reinach spoke to Kieran privately. "You understand what this bond means?" Reinach asked. "I will fight for you, die for you if needed, but I cannot make you strong. I cannot change what you are." "I know," Kieran said, "but maybe what I am is enough. Maybe being kind is its own kind of strength." Reinach's eyes gleamed. "My previous bonded partner believed that. She was right. I think you're right too. Tomorrow we become truly bonded," Kieran said. "Are you ready?" Reinach smiled despite his nervousness. "Ready as I'll ever be." The bonding ceremony happened at dawn in the Academy's ceremonial hall. Ancient Valor traditions required witnesses, so the entire student body attended. Kieran stood in the center of the hall wearing simple ceremonial robes. Reinach faced him, finally free of all restraints for the first time in 2 years. The massive wolf beast looked magnificent without chains. His silver fur gleamed, properly cleaned and groomed. His eyes held fierce intelligence and unwavering focus on Kieran. When the Academy's elder performed the ritual words in the Old Valor language, Reinach responded with vows that bound him to Kieran's protection and Kieran to Reinach's care. The moment the bond finalized, Kieran felt it. A presence in his mind that was not his own. Reinach's emotions flowed into him like a river. Loyalty, protectiveness, fierce pride, and underneath it all, gratitude so deep it brought tears to Kieran's eyes. The connection worked both ways. Reinach could feel Kieran's determination, his kindness, his fear of failing, but refusal to give up. They were bonded, truly and completely. The students reacted exactly as Kieran expected. Some were afraid. Many were jealous. Draker and his friends looked at Kieran with resentment. The human who ranked last now had the strongest protector in the Academy. Felt unfair to them. Jalen and Celera, the other human students, approached Kieran after the ceremony. "This changes everything," Jalen said. "Humans are going to be taken more seriously now because of you. Or blamed if Reinach loses control," Celera added quietly. "You're representing all of us. Don't mess this up." No pressure, Kieran thought. Training became different. Reinach accompanied Kieran everywhere, as was his right as a bonded partner. Instructor Kale had to adjust combat trials because nobody wanted to fight Kieran when Reinach watched from the sidelines, promising terrible consequences for anyone who truly hurt his bonded partner. But Kieran quickly made something clear. "Reinach can't fight for me in the proving grounds," he told the instructor. "The rules allow bonded partners to accompany students, but I won't use him as a weapon. He's my partner, not my shield." This confused everyone. What was the point of bonding with a powerful Valor if you did not use that power? But Kieran understood something others did not. Reinach needed to heal from his trauma. Being treated as a person rather than a weapon was part of that healing. Kieran would not undo the progress they had made. The proving grounds arrived faster than Kieran wanted. He was placed on a team with 4 other students, assigned randomly. The team gathered the night before deployment to plan their strategy. Draker was on his team. The massive Crithian glared at Kieran. "Just stay out of the way, human. Let those of us who can actually fight handle the objectives." Lyra, the Sivian, was also on the team. She studied Kieran thoughtfully. "You surprised everyone with the bonding. Perhaps you will surprise us again." The third team member was Mekrix, a Gearborn specialist in technology. The mechanical being communicated through electronic sounds translated by a speaker. "Your Valor companion interests me. The bond's mental connection fascinates." The fourth was Verdalis, the small Floran student Kieran had helped in the dining hall weeks ago. Verdalis smiled at Kieran. "I'm glad you're on my team. You helped me when nobody else would. I won't forget that." They were dropped into the proving grounds the next morning. The environment was hostile beyond anything Kieran had trained for. A volcanic wasteland with toxic gas vents, unstable terrain, and automated defense drones programmed to hunt them. 3 days. They had to survive 3 days while completing objectives and collecting beacon markers. The heat hit Kieran immediately. His human body was not designed for this. Sweat poured down his face. The air tasted like sulfur and burnt metal. Rhinoc stayed close, his larger body providing some shade. Through their bond, Kieran felt Rhinoc's concern. "I'm okay," Kieran said quietly. "Just need to pace myself." Draker took command immediately, which made sense given his combat training. But his tactics were aggressive and reckless. He wanted to charge straight for the nearest beacon marker, claiming glory through speed. "Wait," Kieran said. "The map shows unstable ground between here and that beacon. We should circle around." "And waste time," Draker snapped. "We move fast and hard. That's how warriors win." "But I'm not a warrior," Kieran replied calmly. "None of us have to be. We just have to survive and complete the objectives. There's a difference between winning and not losing." Draker ignored him and led the team forward. Within an hour, they triggered a drone patrol. The team barely escaped, losing half their supplies when Draker's direct assault caused a lava shelf to collapse beneath them. That night, they made camp in a cave system. Morale was low. They had 1 beacon marker, but at heavy cost. Draker blamed Kieran for slowing them down, even though Kieran had warned against the route. Kieran sat apart from the others with Rhinoc. Through their bond, he could feel the Veiler's frustration. Rhinoc wanted to intervene, to show dominance and force the team to listen to Kieran. But Kieran sent calming thoughts back. This was not about dominance. This was about teamwork. Around midnight, Mekrix's sensors detected something approaching. Something big. The creature that burst into their camp was a nightmare. A pyrosaur, covered in hardened volcanic rock with molten blood that burned the ground where it walked. It was massive, even larger than Rhinoc, with multiple eyes and claws designed to tear through stone. Rhinoc immediately positioned himself between the creature and Kieran, snarling a challenge. The pyrosaur roared back. The two beasts circled each other, preparing to fight. "Stop!" Kieran shouted. Everyone froze, staring at him like he had gone mad. But through his bond with Rhinoc, Kieran had learned to read body language in ways he never could before. He saw what others missed. "It's protecting something," Kieran said, pointing behind the pyrosaur. Barely visible in the cave shadows was a nest. "Eggs. We camped near its territory. It's not hunting us. It's defending its young." Draker raised his weapon. "Then we kill it and take the nest area. Easier to defend." "No," Kieran said firmly. "We move our camp. We don't need to fight. We just need to respect its space." "You want us to retreat from a dumb animal?" Draker demanded. Kieran met his eyes. "I want us to survive. That thing will fight to the death to protect its nest. Even if we win, some of us will die. Is that worth it when we can just move?" Lyra spoke up. "The human is right. I sense the creature's intent. Protective instinct. It will not pursue if we leave." Mekrix agreed. "Tactical analysis supports retreat. Victory probability against this creature, 32%. Casualties likely." Even Draker could not argue with those numbers. Reluctantly, the team packed up and relocated. The pyrosaur did not follow. It returned to its nest, satisfied that the threat had left. They settled into a new camp. Verdalis approached Kieran. "You saved us. Draker's pride would have gotten us killed." Kieran shrugged. "Just seemed like the right choice. Not everything has to be a fight." But he noticed the way the team looked at him now, with a bit more respect. Maybe being weak was not the only thing that mattered. The final day of the proving grounds brought the ultimate test. All teams received coordinates for the central facility where the last beacon markers waited. The structure was a collapsed research station, half buried in volcanic ash, with malfunctioning security systems and dangerous environmental hazards. Kieran's team approached cautiously. Mekrix's sensors detected another team already inside, but something was wrong. The life signs were stationary, clustered together. Trapped. Draker studied the facility layout. "Their problem. We go in, grab our beacon, and leave. If they're stuck, that's fewer competitors. We can't just leave them, Kieran protested. Why not? Draker challenged. This is a competition. Only the strong survive. That's the way of the proving grounds. Kieran looked at the others. Lyra seemed conflicted. Mekrix showed no emotional response, being mechanical. But Verdalis looked troubled. Through his bond, Kieran felt Rhinox's opinion. The Veiler had no love for abandoning those in need. General Nissa would never have left people to die for a better score. I'm going to help them, Kieran said. You can continue to the beacon if you want, but I won't leave people to die when I can do something about it. Rhinox rumbled in agreement, standing beside Kieran. Draker laughed bitterly. Of course, the weak human wants to play hero. You'll fail the proving grounds trying to save others. Is that worth it? Kieran thought about it. Really thought about it. He could follow Draker, let the other team suffer, and maybe pass this test. Or he could be the person he wanted to be, even if it cost him everything. Yes, Kieran said simply. It's worth it. He turned toward the facility entrance. Verdalis immediately followed. I'm with you, the small Florin said. You showed me kindness when I needed it. I'll help you show it to others. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. My people value wisdom over strength. There is wisdom in compassion. I will assist. Mekrix calculated for a moment. Group survival probability increases with cooperation. Logical decision. I will help. Draker stood alone, frustrated. But as the others moved toward the facility, he cursed in his native language and followed. Fine, but we do this fast. I'm not dying for strangers. The facility was a death trap. Automated turrets tracked movement. Floors had collapsed, creating deadly drops into molten chambers below. The life support systems were failing, filling sections with toxic gas. And in the center, pinned down by all of it, was another team. Kieran recognized them immediately. Jalen and Celera, his fellow humans, along with 3 other top-ranked students. They had tried to take the direct route and triggered every security system at once. Now they were trapped in a central room with no way out. Jalen's eyes widened when he saw Kieran. You came for us? Of course, Kieran said. We're all in this together. He quickly assessed the situation. His team could not simply fight their way through, but they each had different abilities. Kieran formed a plan using everyone's strengths. Mekrix used technical expertise to hack into the security systems, creating safe corridors through the turret fire. Lyra used mental abilities to coordinate everyone's movements precisely, allowing split-second timing. Verdalis used nature-based powers to create air filters from plant matter, letting them breathe in the toxic sections. Draker and Rhinox provided the raw physical strength to break through blocked passages and carry injured students. And Kieran led the operation, not through combat prowess or physical ability, but through tactical thinking and the ability to see how each person's strengths could work together. He saw patterns others missed. He understood that sometimes the best solution was not the strongest attack, but the smartest approach. They reached the trap team and began extraction. A piece of collapsed ceiling had pinned one student's leg. Draker and Rhinox worked together to lift it while Verdalis provided medical aid. Mekrix disabled the turrets, threatening their escape route. Lyra maintained mental communication, keeping everyone coordinated. The facility began collapsing around them as they made their escape. Ancient support structures, weakened by years and their intrusion, finally gave way. They ran together. 2 teams united, carrying the injured, supporting each other. They burst from the facility moments before it collapsed completely into the volcanic wasteland. 9 students stood in the ash and heat, exhausted but alive. Jalen approached Kieran, shame on his face. I avoided you because I thought you made humans look weak, Jalen said quietly. But you just showed more courage than I ever did. Thank you. Celera nodded in agreement. We owe you our lives. Both teams shared the beacon markers. Their final scores would be lower than if they had competed alone, but everyone passed the proving grounds. More importantly, everyone survived. When they returned to the academy, the High Council reviewed the trials. Elder Orin addressed the assembled students at the recognition ceremony. Kieran stood with his team, Rhinoc at his side. The Proving Grounds tests your ability to survive hostile conditions, Elder Orin said. But survival is not just about individual strength. The highest scoring team completed all objectives in record time through ruthless efficiency. They will be recognized for their achievement. A team of elite students stepped forward to receive honors. They looked proud and deserving. However, Elder Orin continued, there is another team we wish to acknowledge. Kieran felt his heart sink. He had expected this. He made his choice knowing it might cost him recognition. Student Kieran Vale and his team scored lower than many others. They sacrificed speed and efficiency to rescue trapped competitors. By our traditional metrics, they performed adequately but not exceptionally. Liam felt his heart sink. He had expected this. He made his choice knowing it might cost him recognition. But the Galactic Union was not built on ruthless competition, Elder Orin said, his ancient eyes sweeping the assembly. It was built on cooperation between different species, on valuing all beings, on understanding that true strength includes compassion and wisdom, not just combat ability. The Elder looked directly at Kieran. Student Vale, you entered this academy ranking last in every physical measure. You still rank last. You're not the strongest, the fastest, or the most skilled warrior. But you have demonstrated something equally valuable. You inspire others to be better. You protect the vulnerable. You see worth in all beings, even those others have discarded. Rhinoc rumbled with pride through their bond. Your bonding with Rhinoc shocked many, Elder Orin continued. A Valor warrior choosing the weakest student made no sense. But Rhinoc saw what we missed. He saw strength of character. The same compassion that led you to care for a suffering prisoner led you to risk failure to save fellow students. That is the spirit the Galactic Union needs. The Elder raised his hand in formal recognition. The High Council grants student Kieran Vale and his team the Medal of Unity, awarded to those who exemplify cooperation and compassion. This honor is rarely given, as we usually celebrate individual achievement. But you remind us why we formed a union in the first place. The assembly erupted in applause. Not everyone was happy about it. Draker looked uncomfortable but accepting. But many students showed genuine respect. Even those who had mocked Kieran before could not deny what he had done. After the ceremony, Kieran sat with Rhinoc in a quiet corner of the academy grounds. The massive Valor rested his head on Kieran's lap, content. We did it, Kieran said softly. We survived. We did more than survive, Rhinoc replied. We proved that strength comes in many forms. My previous bonded partner taught me that. You reminded me of it. I chose well. Kieran smiled. I'm still going to rank last in combat trials, probably. Probably, Rhinoc agreed. But you'll always rank first where it matters most. In courage, in kindness, in seeing the good in others when everyone else sees only weakness or danger. They sat together as the sun set over the academy. Kieran was still the weakest student. That had not changed and probably never would. But he had gained the strongest protector through one simple act of kindness. More than that, he had gained a true friend. And he had proven that sometimes the greatest strength is not in being the best warrior, but in being the best person you can be. The other students walked past, heading to their dormitories. Some nodded respectfully to Kieran. Others still looked skeptical. That was okay. Kieran did not need everyone to understand. He just needed to stay true to who he was. And with Rhinoc by his side, he knew he could face whatever challenges came next. Together, the weakest student and the fallen warrior had found their place in the Galactic Union. Not through power or dominance, but through loyalty, compassion, and the understanding that every being deserves dignity and care. That was a strength that would never rank last.